Good evening, everyone. Just flipped to 7:32 on the 9th of March. And welcome to our village work session. Shall we do the pledge and kick off the meeting? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Who's doing attendance? If I know, no attendance necessary, whatever. We want to do announcements.
I have a couple.
Please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that Green Ossining has a couple of great events coming up. They have a repair cafe, where they will fix broken but beloved items for free. And that is on March 12th and May 14th from 11 to 3 at the community center. I have done this many times and it's great. And they'll do everything from sew a button to fix your bike to rewire a lamp, but no gas powered items. This is a green event. They will not fix your gas powered lawnmower. Don't even try. The other thing they're doing is Earth Day is back, back in its full glory outdoors at Lewis Engle Park. It's the 12th annual Earth Day Festival on Saturday, April 23rd from 10 to 5, live and in person, and they're looking for vendors. So if you want to be a vendor, applications are now being accepted. Go to greenossining.org. But it sounds like it's going to be, it's always an amazing day. They're going to have drum circles. There's going to be a lot of new and interesting stuff that they're doing. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Great. Did you say 2 announcements? Was that?
That was it. 2 events.
Oh, the 2 announcements.
2 Green Ossining events.
Got it. Okay. Anyone else?
Okay. I will go.
Oh, sorry.
I will go. Yeah.
Please.
2 announcements. So one is last Sunday, the Ossining Fire Department on 21 State Street opened up its doors to the community, particularly the younger members of the community, to go and visit and learn about the fire department. So I was able to take my 2 little girls. Here we go. You ready for this? Well, I'm gonna try to look at this. Look at this. You ready for this? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Are you ready? Look at this. We got a future firefighter in the making right there. Unbelievable. So thank you to the Ossining Fire Department for continuing to open its doors. And this is how we have such active volunteers, by starting with folks from when they're little. And then the second is, this is a kind of save the date for next Friday, the 18th. So there's going to be a march. I'll give more information about it next week, but at around 10 a.m. So starting from New York City, going all the way upstate to Albany to bring awareness to immigration issues. And they're going to stop here in Ossining at around 10 a.m. So I'll have more information about that. That's going to be organized by Neighbors Link, and really excited about that. So more to come there. That's all from me.
Great. You should, when you get it, send it to me. I'll put it in the mayor's note. If it's Friday, I'll miss it. The mayor's note for this week went out. You said it's this coming Friday, Omar?
Next Friday.
Oh, next Friday. Okay,
Yeah.
so that'll be
The
great.
18th, yeah. Yep, I'll send it to you.
Rika,
Very exciting.
Rika, can I just say one
Yeah,
quick
please,
thing?
Bob.
I want to jump off of what Omar says. We're there every Sunday. Our doors are always open. So you can stop by any firehouse on Sunday. The guys are more than happy to take the kids. As a matter of fact, when we go to calls, we have little fire hats. Omar, did you get any that day? We have little fire hats. And when we see kids out of calls looking at the trucks, somebody always yells, because I'm either driving, somebody drives, yo, get the hats, get the hats. And we make an appointment. Might not even be their house. It could be their neighbors. We make sure the kids get their hats and they get little sticker badges, and it makes their day. So, but like I said, we're always open. Always open. Someone's there, they'd be more than happy to show you the trucks or the firehouse. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. You know, people, especially because I was out this weekend, I met a couple that was here from Brooklyn with their child. They drove up, they heard about Ossining. They went to Lucy's Pizza, brought it down to Market Square. We started chatting, and you know, there was some fire activity. There was fire engines were roaming around. They said, you know, this is great. Like, now I feel like I'm back in the city. I said, wrong, because here everybody is a volunteer. And it's a very different feel, and it's a very big deal because Ossining does not have the issues of volunteer firefighters that much of New York State has. And it just feels and is so different than paid firefighters. Not that that's a bad or good thing, but it just does feel different. And I think it's really cool to learn about, you know, different services. So thank you for to bring that up. When I grew up, girls were never even considered for those kind of things. So Omar and I share the two daughter. Omar may have more than two in the future, but okay, that looked like a no. But it's great, and it's very, very important that this is become, I think,
Never
a more
say never,
equitable
Omar.
position. Well, that's true too. We don't want to get personal about it, but I think it's really cool that they're also so open to the community, etc. But also there is a need. It's also a good career for in the cities where there are paid jobs, paid positions, and that it's great on the resume. So if people want to, whether it's in Ossining or beyond, highly recommend it. I've learned a lot about fire departments, being a trustee and now mayor. That's a segue to yesterday was International Women's Day. It is, you know, the spotlight on women this month. I've written about this. You know, I'm reading so many things on social media about different you know, people who honor their mothers, their grandmothers, their aunts, their daughters. You know, it's just a spotlight on the power that women bring. Certainly, if we're going to look at immigration, Omar, for next week, you know, the immigration cycles across all immigrants, all immigration groups that have come to this country in every decade and every century. The history books do not talk about the women as much as they do about the men. But man, once you study, I was a women's studies minor in college, and once you really study it, you know, I'm happy that now more attention is being given to the women whose shoulders we all stand on, including our moms. So thank you to everyone who's sharing those stories on social media. Personally, I very much enjoyed. We also live in a community where there are women in elected positions. We sometimes get spoiled because we think everyone in New York State or around us is like that. It's actually not the norm, where it's both in the state government at both houses, in the governor's office, county, supervisor of Ossining, you know, mayor of Ossining, and all the trustees and council people. It's sort of it's really great that there's a bit more equity than there has been in the past. So enjoy all the education that you can get about the topic of women as part of our fabric of our nation this month, but all year. But it's nice to have the spotlight. So, village manager Karen Diatori. Very appropriate to have a village manager. People must think that the majority of village managers might be women, but they would be wrong. I don't know how many are women, but I don't think it's very many, actually.
Most are not women, that is true.
Yes, so welcome.
Good evening, everybody. First up tonight, we have been talking for a bit about our code enforcement plans and our sanitation plans. And one of the exciting things about our sanitation plan going forward is the implementation of big bellies in the village. And if there was any way to make sanitation more fun and interesting, this is it. And we have a lot of opportunities. These are multifunctional, mini little solar powered trash compactors that have a lot of utility. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Village Manager Maddi Zachacz, who's been working very closely with our village engineer and Director of Public Works, Paul Fioli, who unfortunately can't make it here tonight. But Maddi is going to give us an update on our plan moving forward with big bellies.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, Board. So I am going to share my screen. Can everyone see? Yes? Can someone give me a yes?
That's a yes. I was giving you the thumbs up.
Sorry, I can't see anyone. Okay, so I'll jump right into it. As the manager introduced, Big Belly is a company that's been around for probably about 20 years and is used in cities all over, not only the United States, but also the world. So we'll start with what is a Big Belly. If you can take a look, as we've discussed a couple of times, and you'll see a few pictures in this slide presentation, Paul Fraioli, our village engineer and the head of our DPW, along with Jamie Hoffman, our project manager, visited the White Plains DPW. And so in White Plains, they have a deployment of a couple dozen Big Bellies, some of which were bought by the city, some of which were bought by the BID, the Business Improvement District, but all of which are maintained by their DPW. So their deputy commissioner and their superintendent were kind enough to meet us on what was probably the coldest day of the entire winter to come take a look and sort of walk us through what a Big Belly can do. So I pulled a lot of this from some of the proposal that we got from Big Belly, but a very brief overview. You can see that basically because of the compacting functionality, that really it's able to carry a lot more litter than can its counterpart that doesn't have the compactor. And also it's a solar compactor. So even without direct sunlight, it can compact and still continue to give out signals to the folks who are going to empty it, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. Something that I know that we deal with sometimes here in the village. If there's not a locking top on the can, the litter can blow out. If it's windy, it might attract birds or squirrels, things like that. Because this is enclosed, we wouldn't have that problem. And again, no overflow or visible waste. So it'll help to keep our streets looking a little neater. I'm going to show a very quick video clip.
The Big Belly Smart Waste and Recycling System is a turnkey solution for public space waste. The Big Belly system is comprised of smart, connected, high-capacity stations coupled with a real-time system dashboard called Clean Management Console. The software and stations work together to optimize your waste operations and keep your public spaces clean. Waste is deposited through the hopper, which keeps trash contained. When a station nears capacity, the collection readiness status changes in clean and the collection crews are notified. When passing by a station, the LED lights on the front door also indicate if the station needs to be collected. Big Belly stations are smart, network connected, and leverage unique compaction technology to hold 5 times the amount of waste as a standard trash bin. Collection crews are able to significantly reduce their number of pickups as well as the number of bags sent to the landfill for a meaningful environmental impact. Customers benefit from reduced collection vehicles on the roads, labor hours, time, and resources spent on waste collection.
All right, so that video did a great job. I'm going to go over just some of the high points, and this Prezi will be available as part of the agenda, so folks can take a look at it later because some of these pictures have pretty small information. But there are 4 categories that make us think that this is the right solution for the village of Ossining. First one is pertaining to safety and security. You'll see on a couple other photos as we go through, the hopper system on this is something that really sets it apart from other compactors due to the angle. So it's sort of like if you go to a FedEx drop, it's sort of like a drawer that pulls out, and then the angle at which it tips the trash back into the can prevents it from jamming. Also of particular importance to DPW is it eliminates illegal dumping. It's a tray basically, and so you can't put a bag of household garbage if it's over a certain size. We did talk to White Plains about whether they have seen folks just sort of leave the trash bag next to the garbage can, and miraculously they said not really. So we'll see if that turns out to be the case. But also for safety, there are really no pinch points. It's not like a drawer that's going to snap closed. And then there's also a foot pedal. So particularly in this time of COVID that we're all trying to be a little bit more conscious about, where we put our hands and where germs might be, we can use a foot pedal to open that hopper and close it. And again, it's a non-skid surface and a dampened motion. So it's not going to like snap on your foot. And then again, some additional things about safety, including fire safety, because it's an enclosed hopper. In case somebody were to put like a lit cigarette in there, for example, the risk of fire spreading is minimized. So that's safety and security. Also energy efficiency, because it is powered by a solar panel, and it's a pretty strong solar panel. It doesn't need to be in direct sunlight. If, for example, we did want to put one of these under an overhang or inside, you can also buy an AC adapter. But White Plains also told us they have not had any instances where they've needed it. We'll talk a little bit about the software in a moment, but the battery diagnostics, it will tell us when the battery is halfway, quarter of the way, and ready to be replaced. And it works in any weather. So even if it's cloudy or if there's snow on the panel, that won't obstruct the sunlight from getting through. And this is a picture of the one in White Plains. If you can see, there's a glass solar panel, and then there's a big plastic safety bubble over the top of it to protect it from weather and from vandalism. Connectivity and communication. The really cool thing about Big Belly is the software that it comes with, which is called Clean. And basically this can go to an unlimited number of users within the village. It can go to a desktop, a mobile phone, or a tablet, and it will basically give a status update on every single Big Belly that we have deployed. And so that's something that our sanitation foreman can have on his phone, as well as whatever staff of the DPW that Paul decides is appropriate. And it can give us a lot of different status updates on, how full the garbage can is, and how often it's being used, and things of that nature. Another really appealing element that I'm going to ask Jamie to talk about in a little while is the customized graphic wraps. This is something that we think would really be helpful on sort of the other edge of the spectrum. So we're not just trying to handle the litter problem, we're also trying to do some education efforts to remind folks that we need to keep Ossining clean. So this gives us a lot of really attractive opportunities to do that as well. And then finally, you can sort of see what the inside of it looks like. This isn't something that anyone's going to be able to access unless they have a key. So this is Larry. He's the superintendent of DPW in White Plains. And as you can see, he was very excited to show us the Big Belly. When we asked them, if you could change one thing about the Big Bellies, what would you change? They said, make them less expensive. We want so many more of them. That was the one thing that they could think to change. And finally, performance. Again, I'll just go over this quickly, but as we were talking about, sort of the angle at which the litter is dropped into the container, as well as where the sensor is, and the compact functionality keeps it from jamming. And then, again, in terms of, potential vandalism, or if it gets, hit by a snow shovel or something like that, it's made to be street tough. So it will stand the test of time. And then that is what the hopper looks like. So if you can kind of see, it's not an excellent picture, but you can kind of see that it's sort of like a drawer, like what I mentioned earlier. So where do we think these would be good? So we talked a little bit about this. At first, we had very high hopes of getting several dozen of these, but we soon decided that it would probably be smarter to do a small scale deployment for the first go around. So we decided on 5 pairs, and what's included in a pair is 1 unit that's trash and 1 that's recycling. They also do offer a third configuration that has a compost element to it, but I don't think we're quite ready for that. So we talked about 5 pairs, 2 of them at the OCA crossing across Main Street, 1 of them in lot 6, which is the farmer's market parking lot, and then 1 of them in lot 5, which is the one closer to the post office. And then for the 5th set, we were thinking Nelson Park would be a great place to pilot this in one of our best traveled parks. So you see, I've kind of put it over here next to the comfort station. That's sort of where we had in mind, but obviously flexible. So proposal options, they gave us the option to lease or buy. If you enroll in the Connect program, it's, and this is all through the Massachusetts state contract. So we're all set with procurement and things of that nature. It would be an 8-year lease, but at the end of the lease, we don't get to keep the equipment, and there may potentially be a fee to remove it. And by the way, after the 8 years is over, we've spent twice the amount of money that we otherwise would. So what do we get for that? Well, we get an annual cleaning. And that's about it. If something breaks, they will come and fix it. But when we spoke to the folks in White Plains, they said they've had these units for years. It's very unusual that they needed something fixed, but when they did need something fixed, it was covered. These are the different configurations, like what I talked about with the compost is over here on the right. What we're going to be recommending is this one right here, the high capacity and standard capacity, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second. And then finally, we learned this really cool thing at the 11th hour. There's something called Telebelly that Big Belly can do that basically offers Wi-Fi that you can put sort of as a little unit in between the recycling and the trash compactor. The only difficult part of this is, and obviously we would still need to, pay for internet service to come to the location, things of that nature. It would need to be hardwired for power. So the solar doesn't run the Wi-Fi system. But the good news is we have plenty of time to learn about this. Even if the board decides we're ready to go ahead with the Big Bellies proper, we can always add this in at any time. It's really just a little connector that goes between the two units. So you can see here. And then the Telebelly 500 actually also comes with a like a mast, so you can get a wider range of service. So the configuration also with the 5 sets, we could either do high or standard capacity and do trash compact or compact everything, meaning the plastic bottles. So here is our recommendation. We are recommending a straight purchase of 5 sets. So again, a set is a trash and a recycling under the Massachusetts state contract. We're looking to do 1 of the high capacity, that one's for the trash, and 1 of the standard capacity for the recycling. The reason being that they find that those sizes tend to fill up around the same time because you have more trash and then it can be compacted than the recycling. So with this price, we'll include the stations with foot pedals, installation, unlimited users on the software, custom wraps at deployment, which you can see in the upper left hand here, slide-in message panels, and then a one-time fee for shipping and liner bags. And the price would be just shy of $45,000. And speaking with the treasurer, she mentioned that this could either come from general fund contingency or fund balance. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie in just a moment. And I know that I'm at 11 minutes and 48 seconds. We also were considering doing this without the wraps. The wraps are really cool, but Jamie feels that the slide-in message panels are something that would be more useful for our marketing strategy. So I'll just click over these really quickly. You can see how neat those look. We can do a lot of branding. And then in terms of ongoing costs, the battery should last about 5 years, according to both White Plains and the manufacturer. The liners, relatively inexpensive, and we already pay for trash bags for the street cans. The printing for message panels, I'll let Jamie sort of speak to. The wraps, if we wanted to update the wraps, it's $1,100 per pair. Spare parts, it doesn't seem like we would really need to be doing that often, but just build in a little bit of extra room in case, heaven forbid something goes wrong. And then these units are set to last us between 10 and 12 years in this climate. So, oh wow, that looks terrible zoomed in. Okay, so these were another couple of examples of some of the custom wraps. You can see you can do almost anything. And that's about. We're going to wrap up. I'm bringing back my favorite picture from the last presentation because it just so happens to fit with this perfectly. But you can see our friends from White Plains in the background and Jamie enjoying the foot pedal on the Big Belly. So that is it for the presentation. I'm going to stop screen sharing, but I'd like to turn it over to Jamie in case she has any comments about the wraps and the message boards before we open for questions.
Hi, thank you. Hi, board. And Karen and everyone. We were taking a look at both types of the trash, either having it wrapped or having the panels on the side. And I felt like, especially right now with the DRI and anything we have, we would have been able to, if we had something like this, we could have had a panel in Spanish and a panel in English that would have led up to last night's meeting with a QR code. And then we would have been able to pull them out today and put in call for projects. So it gives us this great opportunity to share information, and it's fairly inexpensive for us to print them. We could use a local vendor to do that. And when Maddi did some research on what the outside of the plastic was made of, it's tamper-proof. So that seemed like a great idea. And then we can tie it into wrapping around the garbage cans. We can use that as an opportunity for education to talk about the environment and really anything depending upon where they are, because each one would be different. So we could talk about something different in Nelson Park than the one that would be, say, in Market Square or by the Children's Center. By the Open Door and so on. So
awesome. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Welcome.
happy to answer any questions. And of course, this is a fully customizable system. So if the board decides that you want to do something a little different, we can certainly go back. But this is what our recommendation is as the team who's been researching.
I could go first. Can you pull that the map up of where your proposed locations were, please?
Yep, give me 1 second to get that back in action. Here we go. Okay, how's that?
So, that's fine. Main Street. So the one you have in, we're having this obvious problem on Main Street with garbage. So, and I see the one you have in what I'm calling the post office lot. Is there any reason why we wouldn't put that like on Main Street where we have these problems? Like by Vaza or wherever in that little block area. And then the other one is upper Main. Yeah,
Yeah, so here's
Farmer.
Open Door, here's the OCA coming towards Maple House.
Those are
Farmers
our
Market.
two biggest suspect places. You know, and I think that one, the one by the Chase Bank is out of the way. That's my opinion. But I mean, I know where we have problems. But you know, other than that, I mean, great presentation. Get them tomorrow. I tend to agree with Jamie with the messaging. Although I do like the wrap thing to maybe customize it as an awesome thing, but I'll leave it up to you guys. But great idea, and like I said, you know, get 6 of them tomorrow. Let's get them going. And the liners, how many liners come with the first shot?
First shot comes with 2 boxes of 50 for the waste, and then 1 box of 100 for the recycling.
And that's for all of them, not per unit.
No, correct. That's for all of them. But the prices are rather reasonable. I think
I know.
$34 for a box is, I have no idea what we're paying now.
I totally understand. That's just me diving in the weeds.
Yep. No, I got it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to know what I'm getting. So anyway, great idea. I say run with it. I'm in favor of it. And I would just maybe put a little consideration into the location of that 1 box. Other than that, I'm good to go. Good job.
Awesome. Thank you, Trustee Fritchie.
I'll go next. Thank you, Maddi. Great presentation. Your what is that program called again? Or the presentation program?
Oh, Prezi.
Yeah, your Prezi skills are like ever since the pandemic. It's like exponential, very strong.
Thank you.
So I agree with Bob in my support of this. The thought that I had was, you know, when you buy something on Amazon, there's that little part in the middle where it says like people who bought this also bought this. Villages that have big bellies might also have fill in the blank. Like what might be the next thing that is in line with this kind of thinking? It's environmentally friendly, it's technologically advanced,
What a great question. I'm not sure I have the answer to that. That's definitely something that I would have to think about a little bit more. You know, like I said, this is something that, you know, when I was in grad school in the city, I saw these all over the place, and that was, you know, a million years ago. And then seeing them over the past couple of years be deployed in White Plains. And then when Karen and I were at NICOM, we spoke to a couple other Westchester communities who were like, yeah, we really love those, but, you know, they're a lot of money. So we, you know, I'm not really sure what would be next. The kind of cool thing that these are able to do, and I'm not sure if this is something that we would want to deploy now or maybe wait, you know, a couple of years, is, and we have trucks that have the capacity to do this. It can sort of reach underneath it and dump it into the truck without the gentleman having to go and unlock it and do all that. So if Paul was here, I would have him sort of, you know, go on a little bit more about that. But I think, you know, really the next step would be the Wi-Fi. I think that might be a leap for where we are right now. After having gotten the prices early this morning, it's, you know, it's a considerable investment. But, you know, potentially as part of the DRI, since we wanted to do broadband, you know, at the waterfront and then also in this area, that could potentially be the next phase after this deployment.
That's awesome. I think the last question that I have is, speaking of the waterfront, might this be, and this may be for kind of stage 2, but working with the town to get some at the waterfront itself?
You read our mind. So we were thinking that, you know, as you saw, these are not inexpensive. This is sort of an investment. Originally, I had asked them to quote me on 30, and then I was like, oh boy. So we were thinking, if we can get these in the ground in the next couple of months and they turn out to be good, we could also order them for not only Gordine, but order some for Engel and have the town refund us if it's something that they think, because everyone on this call knows, and everyone watching I'm sure does, that those parks are so well used in the summer. It would really be helpful. And in that instance, we might consider compactors on both sides, right? So that to cover us, through the whole weekend when we don't have staff on Sundays. But yes, absolutely, that would definitely be phase 2 if you ask me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll go next. Yay. And also I agree with Bob. The first thing I thought was there needs to be one, on between on that stretch between Baza and the Firehouse. I think they get a lot of foot traffic there. I don't know if you need 2 on the aqueduct, one on each side, but and then I think Echo Park could use a couple of the big ones. But I think it's a really neat technology, and I think it'd be interesting to see if a Wi-Fi kind of aftermarket add-on can help with our Wi-Fi initiative for the DRI. I think we have to do a little more. It's various things that contribute to this broadband kind of everywhere sort of thing, but it's super neat. Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess I could go next. Garbage has always been a hot topic, I guess, through the boards, through the years, especially in Main Street. So I guess I'm going to go a little bit different. I agree. Great presentation, Maddi, as always. Very informative too. So I have several questions. One, so let's say it seems like it's an agreement of the board, the majority so far, that they would like to see this going forward. So what happens to the existing garbage cans that we have on Main Street right now, on those surrounding areas? Are those going to still be there? They're just an addition to what this is. Okay.
I think, I know that Paul wished that he could be here, because I know he could certainly add some color to this conversation, particularly around the locations, because these were actually his suggestions. But he's a little concerned that having these on the residential side is going to be actually a magnet for household trash. So maybe that's something that I could ask him to, watch the video and then get back to the board a little bit about the locations. But yes, I think we envision the other garbage cans staying in place.
Okay. All right, so that's one thing, the other one is obviously, and so it seems like, again, it is going to move forward. Could you go back onto the pricing portion of it,
Sure.
Please?
Yes, I can. We got a couple different versions of the proposal. Oh my goodness, it's going to take me through the whole thing. So this is the one that we ultimately landed on. But again, if we take off the wraps, that saves quite a bit of money. If we did decide to lease, but again, I don't see the return on investment, so I would not recommend it at this time, particularly because it's an 8-year lease and we don't even know if this is going to be the perfect fit for us or not. But this is the quote that we're recommending for the 5 pairs. So with the wraps.
Great. So the 5 pairs, and obviously I'll take your recommendation because you guys have done the study and see what could work and what could not work. Sure. So I'll be in favor of that. So I'm going to say $45,000 is a one-time expense, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So can you take me to the maintenance portion, please?
Yep. Oh, geez, sorry. Here we go. Okay.
All right, so the maintenance, this is every year, correct?
Yes and no. The liners, I think, is going to be the only really regular ongoing expense, that and the printing for the message panels. The batteries, if they last 5 years, which we've been told that they do, and they also told us don't buy them and let them sit on the shelf because they'll degenerate over time. the wraps, it sounds like maybe we're not going in that direction, so we can ignore that. White Plains has not had to replace any of their hoppers or, the very few internal components that there are. I just built in $1,000 a year just, for safe, in case
So-
heaven forbid something does happen.
But budget wise, so is it fair to say that it's going to be less than $5,000 a year?
I would say so. I mean, I think it's going to depend on how fast we go through the liners. That's not, my area of expertise, but we're supposed to be changing it only 1/3 as often as we do now. So ostensibly, we'll be spending 1/3 the amount of money on liners.
Okay, that's fine. So again, it's less than 5 what you have there. So I figure $5,000 a year in maintenance. What is the warranty on a product like this?
So if we're buying them outright, we only get a 1-year hardware warranty. If we were to do the lease agreement, and that's the attractive thing about the lease agreement, right? Is that, anything goes wrong, soup to nuts, until the day they come pick them back up, it's covered. But again, White Plains has quite a few of these units, and, we heard it right from the horse's mouth. They said, we haven't really had any problems, and they bought theirs outright, and that's what they recommended to us.
I didn't see the leasing price. Did I miss that?
I don't know if I had the price in there, but I can tell you what it
I
is.
was just gonna ask that too.
Yeah, for the same setup, it would be $73,440 over the course of the 8 years instead of $43,455 upfront. So
And you
it's-
don't own it at the end of the lease, is what you're
don't own
saying.
it at the end. So if you wanted to do another 8-year lease, you're welcome to do that. It is yet unclear as to whether they would come and swap out the old ones with a new one if we decided to go into a new lease cycle with them. But the other thing is, not only would we not be able to keep it, but we'd have to pay them to come and take them away, which kind of makes me bristle.
So this brings me to a couple of questions, sure. So to install these units, do we need to do any preparation on the ground level?
Paul said, depending on the location, a concrete pad, but that's something that they're very used to doing in-house. And
Sure.
then the installation would be up to the company.
Okay, so that'll be just regular, in-house items.
Yep.
So, and I guess because we don't know what the Wi-Fi situation is right now, sure. We don't have internet throughout the village. So let's say we get these units 6 months from now, more or less, depending in what the variables are with the company. Let's say 4 months from now, or even 3 months from now.
How about
So,
2?
Sure.
How about 1?
How about next week?
Okay.
It doesn't matter, sure. So my question is, what do we do in the meantime to take advantage of the technology that this product has if we don't have Wi-Fi? How does that communicate, Ryan? How would they communicate the garbage cans, the fat belly, to the app or to the website?
There is a Wi-Fi signal in it, but Jamie, I was so glad that I had Jamie on the call when we talked to them yesterday about Telebelly. This is not something I'm very familiar with, but like the difference between something being able to send out a push notification to one of our sanitation foremen as compared to sitting down as a picnic table, opening up an internet browser window and going on MySpace or something like that. Oh my God, I'm so old.
MySpace.
Yeah. So the capacity that the big bellies have without the Telebelly component is enough to get the messages out, to the phone, because I think it's just simple, data. It's like a text message.
Like an SMS text,
So
right?
we don't have to. Okay, so we don't have to buy an additional tower, I want to call it, or antenna to do this.
Only if you want to do public Wi-Fi that people can actually sit down and use. Just to get the
Sure.
notifications to our foreman, nope, there's nothing additional that needs to be purchased.
Okay, so now I guess at some point we do have to talk about that, sure, because we've been talking about public Wi-Fi for
Yeah.
many years. Look,
That's what she said.
no, I understand that, and so is that an additional item that we can purchase in the future if we wanted to? That we
Yes.
can add on? Okay.
Very much so. We only just got them on the horn about this yesterday. But basically they said, look, you don't have to decide today. It's obviously a much larger financial commitment. It's a couple $1,000s per unit. And then we would also have to get internet service to the location. And it would have to be hard, powered in, so we would have to figure out how to run electricity. So that's definitely like a goals kind of situation. I think we should really decide first if we even like these things before we start, thinking that they're going to fix all the problems. But I suspect that they might. So I'm feeling good about it.
So that goes to my last question, and that'll be done for now, at least on this topic. We don't get a trial version on this.
Jamie and Paul were there. And I'm good at needling people to get
At
free
least
stuff.
one. Can we try one location with a free trial for 30 days and see how it works? Look, at the end of the day, we're making the $45,000 investment plus the maintenance, sure. And it's not like in the 3 months or 6 months from now, we're gonna say, you know what, it's not really working. It's getting damaged. People are abusing this. There's graffiti all over the place. It was just really a bad idea. Then we just lost $45,000. So how do we test this out? I mean, this is the city. Again, I don't know where exactly the locations, all the locations are in White Plains, but I'm sure there are areas that were walkable. And I'm not saying, that's not the case here, but if we are putting in some parks, we're putting in some paths that is not as public accessible, people tend to damage things sometimes, and we've seen that. I mean, I see stop signs, with graffiti on sometimes, street signs with graffiti on. We've seen buildings with graffiti on. So what does that mean for something like this? If we, again, that will be a question to the board that I'll be asking. Not that I'm just throwing ideas out or comments out, I guess. Is that something that, in 6 months from now, we're going to say, you know what? This was not such a good idea for us. Not that everything works for us, and there's things that work for us that don't work for the communities. So, I mean, the concept, I love the concept. I think they're great.
I just have one last question. So we've picked 5 tentative locations. Say we have a location and it's really not getting the use that we think it should be getting. Who moves this thing? Who's responsible?
I think that would be up to us, but I'm sure if we wanted to pay them to come do it, they would happily.
Okay, so you just have to find out how movable it is. So if we want to move it, obviously the concrete slab that might need to be built in order to level it is something DPW is going to have to figure out. So I think that's the question. I wouldn't be putting it in a park right now if we're testing this. I would put it at Gordine maybe, and that as a park, but not where you guys did. And I agreed with, was it Omar or Bob? That it needs to be on Main Street, that by Vaza, or if it's Dana, A, it's visible. I think people will then see, okay, change has been made. B, those are the high traffic area, they're the challenging areas. We haven't had as many, we have problems with parks, but it's not as big of a deal. The electricity done by the solar, I think the question is, can cameras also be put on there? I don't know. It sounds like it's just a very low power battery, really, that sends signals, and it probably doesn't need to send them continuously. Probably does downloads every few hours or once a 24-hour period, and it stores some power, etc. The graffiti thing I'm really worried about, but it sounds like either the masking or the inserts are that make it graffiti proof, because that actually is a concern for me.
The wraps are graffiti proof,
but not the other ones.
No, and the other part only covers one of the 6 sides of the box.
Oh, see, that actually would change my mind then, about that versus a wrap. Because the wrap would add a certain element of either education and or beautification, messaging, the whole idea of being graffiti proof, because things that are graffiti proof aren't just for graffiti, they're also for a lot of other substances. That's how they're designed. Birds on the trees with all, I mean, it's just, I've learned that from the city. I mean, there's a purpose for those wraps that actually they're easier to wash. So I would change my mind. I went in with like, oh, of course, let's do the marketing stuff, but I'm now leaning towards the wraps. So I'm definitely for, thanks for the presentation. I know they're expensive, but they do have a bit of a life. And if we take care of them, maybe even longer, I think they're environmentally correct. We have been talking about Wi-Fi and broadband a number of years. we may have a solution here. There may be some security solutions as well if you're hardwiring to put cameras in at some point that we've also discussed. Food for thought. Therefore, the placement of these really should be considered. So that's where I would lean with this. I am shocked that like there isn't some sort of volume discount or first time buying discount. And aside from White Plains, where else in Westchester are they?
I think that's it.
Why? I mean,
They're,
why aren't more municipalities purchasing this?
I mean, Karen, Karen was with me when we were speaking to some of the other administrators from around the county. Everyone knows what they are, but I mean, that's a pretty hefty price tag to invest. Karen, I don't know if you have any other insights.
Yeah, I think it has to do with size and cost. It is sort of a new technology. So I think there's probably a combination of things. I don't know where doesn't Yonkers use them too, though?
It sounds familiar, but I couldn't swear by it.
So, it sort of makes sense that they would be in larger municipalities. And I really do
Right.
think it's cost driven. The reason that you don't see them, they're not more ubiquitous.
I just want to, Mayor, just share the screen once again. And this is what the message panel is. So it would basically be just the
Yeah, I just realized
on
that.
the
Yeah,
outside,
so
and that's the only part that's covered.
yeah, that looks to me like a poster size. So that thing is not going to last that long, honestly. And they don't stay good looking because water gets into them. The outside elements actually, I'm sorry, this is something I've actually done for a living, so I could tell you between outdoor signage and indoor what happens to paper or vinyl or whatever. So I'm just surprised. That's all that I thought when Omar was asking about, the next thing, it was sort of, okay, so who else did you look? Okay, White Plains, but then who else is using them? We have a New Rochelle, we have Yonkers, we have Albany, we've got New York City. Like, are none of these that New York City doesn't use
New York
them either?
City is Paris, London. It's a lot of big international cities that we discussed, not so much
Interesting.
deployment locally. And I did want to mention also, just before we wrap, the $45,000 amount was like the highest amount. So that's inclusive of the wraps and the panels on the side. So it would be wrapped once a year, and then there would be a panel that could be switched on a regular basis. The panels are only $143 a piece. So that doesn't make a substantive difference. The wraps are really what are more expensive. So, if the board is okay with the price, we could try going wraps and boards. And then if the boards don't work out, we just won't continue.
Okay, I mean, I think that I've seen these things. I just felt like I've seen them in more places. White Plains is, high traffic, they have the same issues. Yeah, I like them. And I think even before I said that there was already a majority consensus, but I've been looking for something like this. The solar panel is like an added attraction, the ability to add on later, added attraction. We buy, you're recommending 5 sets.
Correct.
So maybe next generation comes around in a year or two, then we can buy the next generation. I'm sort of surprised there isn't one already. Paul, I'm sure looked at it. I'm sure DPW folks looked at it to make sure, it all looks good. Yeah, I think this is great. I think this is the time to get it. I think always in the long term, these are better. And if we take care of them, maybe they last a little bit longer. What the wraps have, I think will also become a conversation, like what do you want it to say and all that. I don't know if White Plains asks like businesses to maybe purchase it for advertising and pay for part of the cost. I don't know if that came up or not.
Because many of them were purchased by the BID, the Business Improvement District,
Ah.
it really just has a square on it that says White Plains BID. That's it.
Right,
It's
because
very,
they're
very simple.
publicizing themselves, which would actually make sense. And getting consensus on and selling pieces to others actually sometimes comes back to bite us because it becomes a whole project that takes off on its own. But something to maybe look at promoting something, I don't know. I like it. I wish it was cheaper, but I do think that there's so much to this that makes sense that I say like prosper and go forward and whatever the saying is. Thank you.
Stuart, next steps, would there be a resolution needed for this?
Yes, sir, there'll be a resolution needed, particularly because you're going to be essentially piggybacking off of a contract that's issued through Massachusetts, and under our code and our procurement policy, that has to be approved by the Board of Trustees.
Okay, so we looking for this for next week?
That would be on next week's agenda.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
And I think we
folks.
would also be setting up a capital project with a budget transfer, Dale, if I'm correct.
Maddi, quick question. The lead time, what was the lead time on this?
I asked him this afternoon. He said between 2 and 3 months.
Okay.
Summertime.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
good. And great. And do we get points for this because it's environmental, both solar and actual garbage cans?
We will find a way, Mayor. We will find a way.
I need like a little thermostat, like fundraising thermostat that shows all the environmental stuff that we cumulative do, because anyway, I just think everything's right about this, so.
A thermometer with a green flow to it
Yes.
instead of a red
Yeah,
one.
all the projects that we're doing, but this is I know it's expensive. And I do like the fact that this has to go in line with what you're not allowed to put in it, like
Exactly.
home garbage, which is I'd like a camera on it. And the small businesses who are also doing that should not be using it, like they're supposed to be taking it to the back. So when we roll this out, I would appreciate yet a second effort, if not a third or fourth, to the landlords of businesses and residences, that they are to do the right thing with their garbage and stop wrapping them up and then putting into the public receptacles that are supposed to be used otherwise. So good. Yay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, folks. Thanks to Paul. All right, village manager, what do we got?
Thank you. So next we have another innovative public improvement program. But as you know, we received a grant from the Department of State to work on, to do a study for the consolidation of our firehouses. And I want to acknowledge Trustee Fritchie's role in this, because I'm not sure we could have pulled this off without him. He sort of led the charge here. And we do have $18,000, I'm going to have it, I have it right in front of me, but approximately $18,000 coming from the state. It's a matching grant. So we have two requests from the board. One is we had sent you an RFP, a draft RFP to look at, so that we can put it out to solicit the consultant for executing the study. And the second request would be a resolution to authorize for the villages match, which would be a portion of the $18,000, which we would be the town would be putting in between a third to a half of that money. We have to work with them and fine tune that number. And that we're asking for both those resolutions to be put on next week so that we can move forward with the consolidation study.
Okay, you're hearing the sound effects because I didn't read the whole thing that you sent me, the RFP, but I could probably do that by the time we are ready to vote on it next week.
Right,
It's
and
not linked on the agenda, so I will find it in my email.
So the goal of the RP is, to get a consultant who would look at existing conditions, ways to optimize.
This is the same one we used last time? Is this the conversation about Maddi? I think you're talking, but you're on mute. Are you talking?
All right. I started to talk and then I was waiting for someone else to talk.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Trustee Fritchie, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, Maddi, you got the floor.
I was just going to say the village performed a study back in 2009, 2010, and the initiative here is sort of two parts. This process, the planning phase, is really to update that study, which not only looks at the composition of the membership in the department to see how we can continue to attract volunteers of such high caliber, but also how our facilities really need to evolve in order to make them more safe. And in many cases, that's going to mean consolidating them. But yes, certainly we will be reaching out to the consultants that did the first study to see if they're interested in bidding on this one.
Okay, so now it all comes back. I'm all for this. I need to take a 3-minute break. That doesn't mean you have to stop the meeting, because we're not voting. But it's coming back. I'm in support. And I'm just gonna mute and shut my video off, and I'll be back in like 2 minutes. And Manny, if there needs to be a mayor something or other, you're on. I don't want to stop the meeting though.
Oh, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
So I do have a few questions, I guess, not sort of to Maddi and I guess to Bob. So Bob, in the process of creating this RFP, was anything different from what it was the first time when we did this a couple years back?
Well, that was.
What is the difference from then to now?
2009 was then, I wasn't a part of that process.
I understand now. My question was, well, you saw, I'm sure you saw the RFP that went out or sort of the study that went out. So what are we asking? Are we asking anything different? What are we asking right now that is different from then to now?
I don't know if there's anything different. What it's going to do is it's going to create a stepping stone for this consolidation process, a new firehouse, and to recognize, for everybody to recognize that our firehouses are very, very far behind. We are 18th century as far as I'm concerned, because I travel the state and I see a lot of firehouses. And we love our buildings, we all do, but they're not what they should be. They're not even close. They're not even close to NFPA standards, any of it. It's just, we make it work because that's what we do, but this is going to shine light on at each and every one of the firehouses. The membership thing is the membership thing. That's a no-brainer. We know what we have. But as far as a stepping stone to prove out to the board and to prove out to the public and to be able to move some projects ahead, we need this as a beginning to lay a foundation for us to move forward a piece at a time, however we choose to do it. But you know where I stand, and it's not just because I'm in the fire department. It's we're
Thanks,
behind.
Bob. All right, thanks, Maddi. So let me ask you. So you saw the RFP that was out, sure, Karen. You guys saw the RFP. What is the highlights of, if you can just summarize this one from the last one?
Sure. So if you're talking about the scope, it's really looking at, I'm just going to read the main scope to make sure that that all of the deliverables for this are reflective of plans that will favorably be considered by the Austin Fire Department, so that we can go forward with this with confidence of the members, but also making sure that the study articulates the need. So looking at existing conditions, how to take existing facilities, improve them, and or maybe sell some facilities to create a new facility if there's a site for a new facility that can be expanded, but really and then create an action plan that can be followed through with for actually selling properties, consolidating, working towards going from 7 firehouses to a lesser amount, not just for the sake of having less firehouses, but to Trustee Fritchie's point, we have firehouses that don't have the most basic things that they need to protect our firefighters. So decontamination rooms, appropriate access for apparatus. There's certain safety features and best practices that actually, I don't know that any of our firehouses meet the standard that they would need to meet if they were being built today. This is particularly true for some of the older houses. Additionally, one of the things we want to look at, like we have a lot of old buildings where we have firehouses. Old buildings cost a lot of money to maintain, to heat, to restore, to renovate. And this is another way we can be more efficient by consolidating best best practice in terms of facilities and utility, and really getting rid of houses that no longer serve the purpose that they were intended to. The communications aspect in the study is really important to make sure that as we're doing this, that we're taking membership considerations into bringing that into the picture, getting feedback from members in the community, and making sure that as we go forward, that people do not feel that they're losing anything, but they're really gaining something that they absolutely need to do their jobs safely and effectively.
Thank you, Karen. That brings a little bit of more perspective to what I was, I wanted the public to understand, what this study is now from what it was in 2009.
The study from 2009 was, this is a very, very focused on the consolidation aspect.
Correct. All right. I don't have any questions. Welcome back, Mayor. So yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm sneezing away, so I muted. Sorry about that.
Bless you, by the way.
I'm gonna be muting. Any other comments, questions?
I have a
Next-
question in terms of consolidation of firehouses. Does that mean consolidation of fire companies?
Oh, no, it does not.
No.
It means that multiple companies may share a space, but we would still maintain the integrity of the companies themselves. Correct, Trustee Fishy?
That is correct. There is no talk of any sort getting rid of companies.
So with the focus of, okay, I'm thinking of all the different firehouses we have, and a bunch of them are below Highland Avenue.
Yeah.
So would it kind of focus on that area?
That's where all the horses used to be. That's why.
Right, right. And
And
then, okay,
you have the north side, and then you have Monitor. That's been in talk since, well, we got our truck in 2010, and they were talking about it before that. So it's well over 10 to 12 years to talk of doing something at the north side, consolidating Monitor, and that puts those three apparatus that cover a multitude of calls on that end of the village, plus the town. Right? Then you have a steamer and an independent who carry the east side of the village. All right, that's a possibility of a consolidation. So that, you knock it down, I think, from 7 to 5 houses. 3 of them having multiple trucks.
so then would the buildings that are vacated be repurposed or sold, or what would happen?
Well, the steamer company owns their building. So that'd be totally up to them what they do with the building. Village owns Monitor, and that's 2 parcels. That could be sold and use the proceeds towards the north side, or, right, Karen, I'm talking the right way?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then independent owns their building, so that'd be a decision if they want to sell their building. They both own buildings, and they're both buildings that we pay rent for trucks in and pay utility bills.
Right.
Right, and you don't want to see those utility bills.
So when you say north side, you're talking about a new structure to the
Absolutely.
north?
Yep,
That would consolidate a few companies?
that would add a third company to that building.
Because there is a firehouse up there now, but it's one of the most outdated, right?
Pick one. When you say most outdated, yes,
The one on Snowden.
yes.
But
It's an older
that would be
building.
the site,
Yeah, that would be.
the north side site.
Yeah, the north side site would be there. That was in conjunction talk with the developer that wanted to build back there. All right, he was gonna build us a firehouse. Well, we've crossed that bridge. That's a discussion for another night. But that would be the location for a new north side firehouse to put the 3 companies in.
And I also just want to mention, because this is a Department of State grant under the Local Government Efficiency Program, $18,750 is not a whole heck of a lot of money. We understand that. But really the reason that we have chosen to do it this way is that once we have completed this step of the process, we will be eligible for implementation money. So we're hopeful that in the CFA process this June or July, we'll be able to submit another application to say, okay, we did the study, we think we can save X amount of money, and then the state will actually encourage us to do so with potentially a couple $100,000. So that's sort of the short-term game, and that's why we've been sort of speaking to the state as often as we have to move this process along so that we can be competitive.
But it's contingent on building a new firehouse on Snowden.
It's contingent. So what the goal is would be to maximize efficiency. It's not that you would necessarily need to build a new house, but the reality is to be able to make sure that the fire department has what it needs in terms of a house that is fully operational and providing everything that it should have, and to fight fires in today's
And where the
world,
fire
that
trucks
would
will
be-
fit in the bays, right?
Yes, and they would have to fit in the bays too. So
They're
the
bigger
idea,
now.
the idea would be to really use the money to optimize space and reduce the number of individual houses that the village would own, it, and the independent companies too. It could be an advantage for them too, to get rid of some overhead costs and be able to enjoy a better, a more state-of-the-art facility. The opportunity is most of the firehouses that are, were built in a day when they made perfect sense where they are. It doesn't necessarily, most of them are not in places where you would put firehouses today.
No.
And they are in our business districts and things. So they're prime for adaptive reuse and to be put up back on the tax rolls too. So there's that advantage as well.
Yeah, and just another little tidbit with this road diet and the five-way intersection. It's going to be after, I think, all of that happens, but right now you're talking about the capability of 5 to 6 apparatus coming up Church Street for a call. Where with this, we move apparatus around and put them in their quote unquote call areas. All right, you knock 2 apparatus right out of there. So that reduces your, us going up to that hashed area and making that work to that new road diet and hopefully the new five-way intersection. So it's just a little tidbit for thought.
No, I'm all for, reducing the number of trucks down there because, last summer, if you're sitting outside eating in the park lit or whatever, and then when the fire truck alarm goes off and the fire truck comes blast by, it definitely, it's loud, I mean, it's like, ah. So, but it sounds like, huh?
It's the price you pay for being safe. We're coming.
No, I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying it, wouldn't be the worst thing if they were at a more central location. So anyway, I think it's definitely worth, looking into. I think long term, it's something we have to really think about. Okay, anybody else? Next steps?
Next steps is a couple of resolutions. So a resolution next Wednesday to authorize the manager to sign the contract with the Department of State, and also a resolution committing the village's matching portion. We will confirm with the town beforehand so we know how much match we need to put in.
Dollar for dollar match? Is that what you said
So it is a dollar for dollar match against the state funding, but the town had originally planned to put in a third of the money back when the budget was still sort of in flux. So we just have to make sure if they're at a third or half.
Okay. All right. All right. So thank you, everybody. Next up, our next topic for the evening is our reimbursement of business expenses
policy, review of revisions. So I'd like to turn that over to Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan and our Village Treasurer Dale Brennan.
Before you get there, hey Karen, is there a reason why none of these on this agenda, is it just the work session reason that they're not linked to like anything? Why the Big Belly wasn't linked to a presentation?
Yeah, it's just because it's a work session agenda. So
you don't
we
do
had
the
but what we'll do is, you know, we can
Yeah,
put
the
the
map.
presentations up and post them tomorrow. And then when we do resolutions, we'll make sure everything's linked.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
and I'm sorry, I just want to piggyback on that. We had conversations on this in the past, and especially for work sessions. If there's people that want to have common, to me, we have done it in the past where all presentations are actually a link and part of the work sessions items as well. That's something that I have requested in the past.
Okay.
That's something that I have requested, and that I'm going to keep requesting. So please, any item that is public, that has to do with the public, I think it should be fair for them to be part of the agenda itself.
No
I mean,
problem.
Okay, as long as there's no actual reason or downside,
Well, some things we wouldn't put out until there was a resolution, but I think for a presentation or prezi is something that we can do.
Yeah.
Things that we don't have a board resolution on, we may not want to do that because we don't have a resolution yet. So that would be, and the time for public comment would be during the legislative session. But we'll make sure that to the degree that we can put things up publicly, we will.
okay, so let's start with that.
Okay, thank you, folks. Good evening, everyone. We've talked reimbursement for a bit, and I had sent the board a memo on Monday afternoon, just dealing with a couple of, would to some extent maybe cleanup issues before we can present you with a final policy. One deals with the issue of whether the board would like to adopt the meal/lodging numbers, which are approved annually by the General Services Administration. There are, you can go to the GSA site, which I actually have in my memo to the board, which lists what all these rates are. If you do the GSA rates for meals, you do not then require, which is essentially the per diem, you don't require receipts because the bottom line is you're using the per diem rate. Same, and with regard to lodging, you're using the per diem rate, and those rates vary depending, obviously, where you go within New York State. I think there are 12 different regions in New York that the GSA has. We are in here, it's the White Plains Tarrytown region, but there's all different things like that. And it just makes it, and I let Dale obviously to comment on this, but it may well make it easier to simply have just refer to the GSA rates. We already use the IRS rates with regard to mileage. So the GSA rate is something that comes out annually. I believe that with regard to lodging, it comes out every October. So it's essentially October to September in terms of the rates. And so that's, one thought is to be putting in. Right now, we just require, receipts, and essentially we're doing actual and necessary expenses. But again, the GSA rate is sort of a rate that's there. But if you use the GSA rates, you would also then want to include a provision that there may be simply exceptions to the rule that either the board or the village manager can approve. You may be staying at a hotel where a particular event is occurring, which simply has a higher rate. And it's easier to stay at that hotel than be, perhaps 30 minutes away somewhere else, which would have, the lower GSA rate. And there are ways that you can, get around that. So the thought is to just include that in there. It's also recommended by the state that there be a provision with regard to expenses of volunteer firefighters, specifically relating to the fact that if there is going to be a course that is given outside the county, in this case, Westchester, the board should give approval. If it is a school or course that is outside of the state, then there must be a finding pursuant to law that the board finds that the course is necessary in the public interest and is not available within a reasonable distance and time period within the state of New York. So that's by law, we don't have that. It's recommended by the controller that that language actually be included in any reimbursement policy. It's not in our current reimbursement policy. It's also just recommended that there be a statement in the policy that employees be made aware that they would be held personally, they may be held personally responsible for improper charges that may be incurred. Again, that does not appear in our current policy, but it is a strong recommendation from the controller. So the thought is to put that in there. And that's basically it. I mean, as I said, this occurred because as I was reviewing our policy and the recommendations from the board and looking at the state guide, which is published by the controller's office, there are a few things that the controller's office recommends. That's what is here, but I did want to just let the board know what they are. The most important decision the board would have to make here, if they're okay with it, would be you could continue doing actual and necessary expenses and you know, the usual cost of a single room occupancy rate, which is what we have now, or you can go to the GSA rates. And if you, again, do the GSA rates, you would want to have a provision which would provide for exceptions to that in the event of certain events. And those that exception could be either approved by the manager, depending on who is going on the event, or the board, if it is a, let's call it a board members are going on the events, which was sort of the split that was discussed last time when we had this conversation. So that's really what some of the, as I said, minor tweaks. Once these are dealt with, the policy can be finalized, sent to the board, and hopefully approved, and then become one of the village's standing policies. Thank you, folks.
Sorry, I'm having having a problem with my cursor here. Okay, comments, folks? Pros, cons, upside, downside?
No, I'm good. Thank you,
With
Stuart.
what? You're good with what he's presenting here and
That is
exactly
correct,
as it
ma'am.
is?
Yep, yep,
Okay,
I'm okay with
Sounds
that.
good.
anyone else? Oh, Bob, was that a I am too?
Yeah, sounds good. I read through it.
Anybody else? Nope. Dana's still looking, so waiting.
Here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can go either way. So for me, as long as there's consistency across the board, that's all I look at. And I guess this will be added. So when people are hired or whatever, because it did say that people have to be notified that this is, you know, available, etc. I actually brings a question to my mind. Our employee handbook or whatever we use, when I became a trustee, I signed like a 3-inch deep pile of paper. Is it online or is it only on paper? Well, I'm getting
Only
a
on paper.
file
It's
and
only on
I'm
paper.
getting a one of these. What?
It's only on paper for right
It's
now. I
only
know
on
that's a
paper.
project that Marissa is excited to sink her teeth into once she comes up for air a little bit.
Exactly right. Yes.
You could add that to an environmental project.
Sure.
Okay.
For sure.
I thought I was asking a rhetorical question, but okay, so I wasn't. That was an actual question, as it turns out. Okay, but we're heading in the right direction because this has to be in somewhere so people can access it and it's easy and all that. Okay, I like the consistency of it. I'm trying to see. It feels like the board will have to approve a little bit more than it has in the past. All village manager still approves a bunch of this stuff. This doesn't speak actually to a conversation that came up about conferences outside of New York. But it sort of addresses a little bit about the expenses. So I guess that's a good move. If it's available in New York and somebody needs to go outside of New York, they would have to explain themselves, it sounds like. So it covers it sort of indirectly there. Am I to understand that if you spend less than the per diem rates, you can keep the money?
You get the per diem.
You get a per diem. So if you stayed somewhere, or whatever, and it's less, you're allowed to keep the money, is what I'm hearing.
That would be
Okay.
correct, Mayor.
So these are not, this is not exactly huge numbers. So, okay. All righty. We have a majority even before I started asking the questions. So I join the majority and make it unanimous.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Stuart. And if there are any problems, I'm sure we'll hear about it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I'm
Okay,
looking at the agenda, but I'm feeling like that was it.
that was it.
Okay.
Can we have a motion to adjourn to executive session for matters of personnel and matters of litigation, please?
So moved.
Second,
I don't think there are any comments. Can we have a vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. 8:51, we conclude this meeting and we are adjourned.